Hello everybody, I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. So, Emperor Mage, the penultimate book of the Tortall series that I'll be doing for this channel. And the penultimate book in the Immortals tetralogy by Tamora Pierce. I honestly don't know what's up with this cover, but this is the cover of my copy. So this is the cover that I've got. So we've been hinting, or rather Pierce has been hinting ever since the first book that, well, not so much hinting, but, you know, hasn't really made it super, has made it be an undercurrent rather than a direct thing, that Emperor Ozorne of Carthage has been behind the troubles Tortall has been suffering in this book series. That it's because of his mages that the Immortals finally got out of the Divine Realms and have returned to this stand-in for planet Earth. Actually, I have a personal theory that goes back to when I was originally reading these books. And it's a personal theory that, given the number of names that are shared in this book with the real world, that I actually very genuinely view this world as a post-apocalyptic world. That is, that you had planet Earth, and it went along till at least approximately the 20th century, the end of the 20th century, which is when these books were written and published. And then there was some kind of massive cataclysm, and from the ashes of that cataclysm arose the world that eventually turned into the world of Tortall, etc., etc. Because with all of the names of things that are shared with all of these cultural things, and with the fact that there's an event actually in the first of the Alana books where Miles talks about pans that they coated in a special protective thing, and I was like, that sounds totally like they've covered their pans in Teflon. And I basically have the headcanon that if you got a team of archaeologists out into the wider world of, like, Tamora Pierce's Tortall, that if you went digging, you would find, like, all of the detritus of the 20th century just, you know, like 50 yards underground or whatever. But that's just my headcanon. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying, for the record, I treat this as being a post-apocalyptic thing. Anyhow. So, basically, now that we've gone completely off topic, the titular Emperor Mage, Ozorne, has, you know, released the Immortals. He's sent raiders pretending to be pirates, so, you know, they're really privateers, I suppose. Privateers being pirates that are being run by the government for the purposes of plausible deniability. And, you know, and he was the one behind everything that was happening in Dunlath, offering them a place to sell all those opals that they were illegally selling out of the country, etc., etc. But in this book, Ozorne, literarily speaking, steps out of being a mysterious figure in the background and turns into the primary opponent. He's sort of... The book opens with Daine and the rest of a Tortallan delegation who have been brought to Carthage ostensibly to talk terms of a new peace treaty between Tortall and various northern countries and Carthage. And Daine is there because she has been asked after for her ability to heal animals, because Emperor Ozorne has a bunch of birds that he really, really likes, and they've been ill lately, and so he wants Daine to come and heal the birds. And so the way this goes, we have that over the course of the book, we see that there's a lot of stuff that's going on underground and in the background, and I'm sure if somebody looks long enough, they could find probably all of the fanfics that are detailing all of the very complicated negotiations and stuff that's happening. But it turns out that Daine has at least partially been maneuvered there by the gods, because the gods have decided that Ozorne needs to be punished. Basically, he has been ignoring them, he has been ignoring their warnings, he has been not doing his job as emperor of the Carthagi Empire, etc., etc. And so Daine is warned that she's supposed to be an instrument of the gods. She is supposed to act as their hand. And so she's not really interested in that, as anybody who's sensible is not interested in that sort of thing. Nobody should ever want to be the hand of a god. That's a very uncomfortable and terrifying position to be in. But by the end of the book, the situation has sort of driven her into that extreme. She is informed that Numer was executed. She was kidnapped. Numer, it turns out, was not executed. He had, in fact, been setting up a simulacrum, a sort of a magic-imbued pretend him, which was there because he was entirely expecting somebody to try to execute him, because the whole thing was that he had been a student at the University of Carthag and had to go on the run after he wound up having some kind of contretemps with Ozorne way back when they were both still just students, and he'd had to go on the run, and at least part of his being in Tortall has to do with the fact that they granted him asylum as much as anything else. But, so, you know, they tried to execute him, so Numer had a simulacrum ready to sort of take the hit for him. But, of course, Daine, who was unconscious while all this was happening, had no idea. Although there is a lovely exchange near the end when she asks him, "Why didn't you tell me you had a simulacrum ready in case they executed you?" And he's like, I think I forgot to tell you. And she's just, you know, aggravated because, of course, that makes way more sense than it should. But this is a very, very dramatic ending to this book. It's, in a way, it's a very, very slow build. Like, the first book in this series is very, very exploratory. It's an, you know, solid crawl. It's a solid movement forward, but it's very much about Daine feeling her way through what it is that she wants. And the second book, you have this constant sense of, you know, being worried and being in danger, and it's a sort of an immediate present and physical sort of concern and danger. Because of the nature of where they are, the danger in this, there is, you know, sort of a present threat of physical danger, but it's a threat of having somebody spy on you and rat you out and then cause you to wind up a victim of poisoning or assassination or something like that. That there's the ongoing tension in this book about, you know, the fact that the gods are constantly sending all of these massive, terrifying omens of like 60-foot tall statues marching around and just saying, "Whoa, you know, the gods are angry," and like there's a lot of this, but there's no adventuring happening. You know, it's a lot of an undercurrent of tension, and this will be, in a way, sharply contrasted with the last book, which is basically all, you like, an actual all adventure thing, whereas this is this is Daine existing on the edge of a lot of Byzantine plotting, that she's not involved in the Byzantine plotting. She's, very, very aware that it's happening. She's aware that people are telling each other secrets and doing secret things and sneaking about and so on. But she's taking the very, very practical approach of, I'm not involved in this, and I certainly don't want to be involved in this, and I have quite enough on my own plate right now, thank you. Because she absolutely does. The badger, who is the badger god, the god of all badgers, who has been a friend to her throughout these books, who looks after her because her father, it becomes apparent in this book that her father is in fact a god. Daine, for a very long time just had no idea who her father was at all, just that her mother didn't tell her. But in this book, we get this final thing where there's these other people with wild magic, the Banjiku, and they're a sort of that they all have wild magic, but wild magic that they have is for specific kinds of animals. Like Stefan back in Tortall, who has magic with horses. But Daine is, just a big ball of wild magic and is connected to basically all the animals, including the various, animal immortals. And so she can talk to all of them and make all of them do what she wants. And the Banjiku ask her, what god was your father, because we want to pray to that particular god to convince him to sire, children on our daughters. And Daine's like, I'm not a god. I'm not. What are you talking about? And the Banjiku are just like, you're super powerful. How can you not, realize that you're half god? And Daine winds up accidentally dying again, because in the first book, she accidentally nearly killed herself in that wonderful scene that is such a favorite of mine, where she's explaining where she meditates and she tries to quiet her heart because her heartbeat because it was too loud, managed to shut off her own heart, and then has that wonderful moment where she's like, she's asking Numer, do people have visions when they're dead? I don't know. I've never tried it. Well, Daine accidentally pushes too far, which she gets yelled at by the badger for, and I think it was really entirely unfair of the badger, since she didn't go to wake anything up. She tripped and fell, and her hands landed on the thing, which is totally different from, waking things up. It's like, what possessed you? I fell. Daine, I feel, sometimes gets yelled at a little bit unfairly by people. But anyways, so Daine, and if you're wondering, the thing about Daine is that the graveyard hag, who is sort of the primary goddess of Carthag, has decided to, as I said, use Daine as her vessel, and so she gave Daine the ability to raise things from the dead, sort of. They're not exactly zombies, but they're kind of, half alive, half not. So Daine winds up sort of, passing out when she accidentally wakes things up because it eats up some of her energy. And so when she falls on top of a fossilized nest of little tiny dinosaurs, and they all wake up at once, it kills her, and then the badger yells at her as though it's her fault for tripping. Anyways, so Daine finally finds out that her father is a god, and there's a lot of setup in this book. Because this is the book that kind of sets everything up for the climax in the last book. Yeah, that's, I think, everything that I'm going to say in this remarkably disjointed ramble of mine. I hope somebody found something useful or interesting in this. And I guess that is all that I'm going to say, and I will see you all next week.